So, are you thinking about visiting Miami soon, or maybe even moving to South Florida, and curious to know what the weather is like most of the year and if it is really hot all the time or not? In this video, I'm going to share with you what the weather is like year-round in South Florida, and I'm going to share with you what my preferred time of year is to visit South Florida. So if you're interested, just keep watching. So hi, I'm Lindsey, and welcome to my channel. I moved to South Florida over 10 years ago, and I've been living here on and off the past 10 years, and this channel is mostly going to be covering topics about living or moving to South Florida. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, definitely check out this channel and subscribe below to the link. If you enjoy the video, please give it a thumbs up, and let's get into the video. So a lot of people think that it's hot year-round in South Florida, and for the most part, that does have some truth to it, but we actually do have different temperatures and different seasons. Our main two seasons are the dry season and the rainy season. So I'll kind of discuss the difference and when those are and how it relates to the seasonal changes throughout the year. So a lot of people think that it's hot year-round in South Florida, and for the most part, that does have some truth to it, but we actually do have different temperatures and different seasons. Our main two seasons are the dry season and the rainy season. So I'll kind of discuss the difference and when those are and how it relates to the seasonal changes throughout the year. So currently I'm recording this video in January of 2020, but let's scoot back to November because that's really when the weather starts to change. So usually around November, December is when the temps actually drop from the hotter summer temperatures. So in November, December, they might drop from maybe a typical summer temperature of 92 or low 90s to upper 80s. And in November, they might drop to 70s, even sometimes upper 60s during the daytime. And at night, we start to see the temperature drop from upper 70s to upper 60s. So it's not a drastic change, maybe 10 or 15 degrees difference. But each season in South Florida, the weather is pretty consistent day to day. For example, in the summertime, it's probably going to be 89 every single day of the week, or 91 or something like that. It doesn't fluctuate up and down that much during the seasons. So in November, the temperature starts to cool off, and that starts to begin the dry season in South Florida. The dry season typically runs from winter time to early springtime. So typically November to about March is when it's going to be dry, which means less rain showers, less thunderstorms, and overall more sunny weather day to day. And also during this time is when the temps are going to be on average maybe in the upper 70s, low 80s. It can be cooler. It can definitely drop down to the lower 60s sometimes, and even at night, it can go from 60s to 50s, even occasionally 40s. Actually, tonight, I think it's going to be 44 degrees. A lot of people don't realize it can get quite chilly in South Florida during even the wintertime. So it's not always 95 degrees in South Florida. So the coldest temperatures are probably going to be in January and February. And really the coldest temperatures might top out in the upper 30s. It doesn't snow in South Florida, even though I think once or twice in the last 100 years there have been flurries in Miami. But overall, that's so unlikely that would ever happen. But it can get cold in January and February. But overall, the high travel season to South Florida, or when people usually recommend people to come, is typically between November and March, when the temperatures are cooler and there's less humidity, and it's just more pleasant to be outside and to go to the beach, in spite of a couple of cool days here and there. Overall, during this time, the temperature is probably going to be in the upper 70s or lower 80s, and really enjoyable to be outside. The only downside to coming to South Florida between like November and March would be that this is the high tourist season, so there's going to be a lot more traffic than there might be other times of the year. The prices, for example, in the restaurant are typically a little higher during this time because it is the high season, like maybe 10 or 15% higher. Hotel prices are going to be more expensive as well. So these are just some things to take into consideration if you're planning a trip to South Florida during the dry season / winter / high tourist season, which is November to March time. So like I said, November to March is probably the ideal time to come to South Florida. And it's definitely my favorite weather throughout the year. It's definitely probably January, February, and March. But if those time frames don't work out for you, I'll give you some other options later in the video. So after we move past March into April and May, these are kind of transitional months in South Florida. Both months can see warmer days or slightly cooler days. It's definitely going to start getting a lot more humid in April and May. And as we get into late April, early May, we're going to start seeing more afternoon thunderstorms pop up as the humidity tends to increase during this time. There may be some cooler afternoons in April where it might be upper 70s, which is a cooler afternoon here. But in May, it can definitely hit 90s. So that's something to take into consideration if you're planning a trip in April or May. That it can get quite sticky and sometimes uncomfortable in the afternoons if you're planning to be outdoors. But if you're going to the beach, that won't be a problem at all. So starting June 1st is the official start of the rainy season and hurricane season in South Florida. But typically hurricanes don't really come that often in June because the water is just starting to warm up. They typically come more in August, September, and October. I think September is the highest month for hurricanes or tropical storms. But June 1st until November 30th is the rainy season / hurricane season. So just keep that in mind if you plan to travel to South Florida during this time frame. There is a possibility that there could be a storm or a hurricane, but the good news is we usually get about 3 days to a week or more in advance if there is a storm forming out in the Atlantic. So that is a good thing if there is a storm on the horizon. So just stay tuned to the weather as it gets closer to your trip. But overall, the temperatures in the summertime typically range from 86 degrees to up to 92 or 93, and they generally stay in that time frame. It's not very common to have upper 90s temperatures in South Florida, to be honest. However, the heat index can hit triple digits because of the humidity. It makes it feel 10 degrees or more higher and hotter. So even if it might be 92 outside, it may easily feel 102 to 105 degrees. And because of humidity, generally in 2 to 5 minutes, you're gonna feel pretty hot outside if you're in the direct sun. So keep in mind, to be close to areas of shade to cool off if you're out and about during those hotter summer months. Also, it's really important if you're going to be outside anytime during the year to definitely wear sunscreen, because even if you're outside even just 10 minutes sometimes, especially in the summertime when the sun is hotter, you can already start to get a burn in 10 to 15 minutes. So the summer months, particularly June, July, and August, tend to be the hottest, where you're going to see those 88 to 92 degrees average daily highs. And at night, it doesn't really get that much cooler, probably 85 degrees to maybe lower 80s at night. It's still very humid. The heat index can still be in the 90s overnight. So you're not going to get that much relief to be outside. So that's probably why people don't wear that much clothing, or like just tank tops and shorts and things like that, pretty much June through October almost. However, towards the end of October, that's when we really start to see a slight change in temperature. The evening or the morning might be something like 72 degrees, and it really does feel a lot cooler at 72 degrees in the morning. And as the humidity starts to fall in late October, we start to feel like a lot less oppressive weather, and the rain showers start to taper off a little bit towards the end of October as we get closer to November. So as I mentioned, November to March is the high season, but let's say, for example, you can't make it during that time, or you want a little bit cheaper prices. If you want to come in April or October, those would also be great months to come because they're transitional months, probably October over April, to be honest. But those are like transitional months. Prices start to come down a little bit. Traffic is less. And overall, they might be just more enjoyable times to come if you can't come during the winter months. Probably the time I would recommend least is the summertime, just because it's so hot. There's a lot of rain, and there's always the risk of a tropical storm or hurricane. So I would definitely avoid South Florida during that time. Really, those are the best months. Like, I feel like I get a lot of work done because I'm typically more inside during the summer months. And as the weather cools off in October, I start doing more things outside. Not to say you can't do things outside throughout the year. You definitely can, but it just might take getting used to the humidity a little bit, and then you'll be fine. So just to recap, because I kind of gave a lot of information out there, the dry season and the cooler season typically goes from November to March, and that's a really nice time to come to enjoy pleasant temperatures. But typically from about May to June all the way to October, it's going to be more of the rainy season, the warmer, hotter season, and you're going to be looking at temperatures between 88 and 92 on average. So we'll be a little bit more warmer, but the good news is it never ever actually hits 100 degrees in Miami, so it won't be super hot in temperatures, but it's the humidity that makes it feel a little bit more muggy. So I'm going to put everything, all the information in the description about the weather and the season and all that information, and I'll add Celsius degrees down into the description. That way, if you're from Europe or South America or Asia or some other place that uses Celsius, you can check it out in the description. I'll be making more videos about living or moving to South Florida, so be on the lookout for that. Definitely subscribe if you want to check out those videos. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, share with a friend, and I'll see you in the next video. Oh yeah, don't forget to check out some of my extra videos right over here and the subscribe button here. All right, thank you again so much, and thanks for watching.